Do you think Patrick Moore is next in line for the title when he puts more mass on his frame? No. Patrick Moore has potential for sure, but he's older than people realize, I think. Everyone thinks he's kind of young because he's relatively new to the game, but he's in his late 30s. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think he's like 38 or 39 now. So this guy does not have a lot of time on his side to build up his body more. Like, he needs to put on a lot of mass, like probably 20 plus pounds in order to really be in contention. And can he do it at this point? I don't know, maybe, but he's definitely not next in line because he's got so much work ahead of him. Will you do more training videos? I really love the ones you did so far. Yeah, thanks. I enjoyed them too. It's just basically my options are kind of limited because I need to kind of track down footage of the pros talking and discussing, which is quite time consuming. And I don't watch as many training related vids as I used to. So that would require more research. One of the things I was thinking of doing was something about like Smith machines because they get so like, everyone shits on them in the fitness community. They act like you're a pussy if you even step under one of those machines. And really, in my opinion, and watching all these pros use them through the decades, they're almost as good. Like, they're not as good as doing a free weight squat or something like that, but they're not like, it's not like it's useless. You're still building muscle, right? And there's, so like, obviously from a pro bodybuilding standpoint, they're totally valid, and I don't think that they deserve the bad reputation that they get. So I might do something like that, but it's not anytime in the near future. I wasn't planning on it, but it is on the back burner. In what way has your training changed over the years since you started until recently? So I've kind of migrated more towards machines, the Smith machine I was just mentioning, but also like cables and hammer strength machines. There's just a lot more options right now than there used to be, and a lot more quality machines that you can use that are really smooth and ergonomic and stuff. And I do find that they tend to put less pressure on the joints, less strain on your body overall, and in that sense, they're also kind of safer as well. So as I'm getting older, like I am trying to do a little bit more of that. Still do free weights, of course, but it's a mix. Love the channel. Do you think the fitness industry on the whole is a net good or bad for the general population's physical and mental health? Cheers, mate. Yeah, good question. Very interesting one. I would say on the whole, it's probably good, just because you're educating people on how to use correct technique, how to do different exercises, that were formerly kind of like only reserved for the hardcore lifter. Like, I can remember when I first started really working out, like say 15 or 20 years ago, you go to the gym, the squat racks were open like probably 3/4 of the time. It was glorious, man. So you could always pretty much get a rack if you wanted it. And nowadays you go in, there could be like 4 or 5 squat racks and they're all occupied. And like 2 of them are from like, 120 pound girls doing like squats with 10 pounder on either side. And it's like, get the fuck out of here. Like, it was actually nice back in the day when not every person and their friggin' little sister was doing squats. So, but on the whole, for the general population's health, I think it's definitely a good thing. Of course, there's negatives. There's a lot of misinformation out there as well, and like a lot of people setting unrealistic expectations of how your physique could look. But I think on the whole, it's probably a good thing. Ooh, this is a really long one. Now that Classic is here to stay, do you think aesthetics should be considered in the open class since it is so heavily considered in Classic? If so, how do you think it should matter for the open guys? Okay, so I'm going to answer this right now. I don't think it should matter for the open guys, provided that their midsections are in check, because that's really kind of like the breaking point for aesthetics. If you that's kind of the thing that ties the whole body together, gives you the nice outline. It really helps with the V-taper and other aspects. So as long as your midsection is good, reasonably trim, reasonably well-defined, not bloated or distended, I think that's all that matters for as far as aesthetics are concerned in the open. And as well, I guess you got to have somewhat decent proportions, and symmetry, like bilateral symmetry. But most of the guys do. So unless you're like melted with injuries or palumboism or something, then it shouldn't really be a factor in open. Which young bodybuilder has the best chance of being Mr. O in the future? Really good question. I do not know, honestly. I think Hunter Labrada shows a lot of promise because he's so young and he's already, winning shows, and he's very complete. Just has a couple of minor weaknesses to bring up, and then he could be very, very dangerous. But because of his age, I think he has so much potential, and his father is, he comes from a good genetic genetic pool. So another guy would be that GoodVito guy. Don't even remember his real name, but the Russian dude with the crazy quads and arms. If that guy can bring up his back, holy cow, man, he's going to be a real threat with such a tiny waist and such crazy limbs. So my question is, if you could train with any current pro, who would it be and what body part would you train? It's an interesting one. I don't know, man. I really don't know. Maybe like it would be cool to... I don't really believe in like, oh, if somebody has the best back, that's because they know the best techniques. It's more genetics than anything. So I don't think like if I train with Ronnie or Dorian, would my back ever resemble theirs? Hell no. But I think it'd be really cool to train with like Rolly or Phil and train arms, just because it would be cool just to stand there and watch them and see how like enormous those guns are in person. Hey Tom, Happy New Year. No BS, you are my favorite YouTube channel at the moment. Thanks, man. I was recently given a bag of creatine as a Christmas present. I've never used this stuff before, and I was wondering if you had any advice and if you use it or have used it. So I would say my advice in general would be go ahead and use it. It's proven to be pretty safe. All the studies show that. Personally, in my own experience, I don't mess with it anymore because it gave me insomnia, and that is not a lie. It messed up something with my heart, man. Like my heart would just go boom, 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 boom. And I know it was the creatine because I tried it probably like 6 to 10 different products that all had it. And of all those products, it happened every single time, whether it was regular creatine monohydrate, just pure creatine, whether it was in a pre-workout, whether it was in like, with artificial sweeteners and sugars and stuff, like, Celtec back in the day. Without fail, I would get the same results. And, you can't make gains when you're not sleeping. So I just didn't bother. And plus, it didn't seem healthy, having my heart rate elevated like that and pounding and stuff. But from what I've read and what I've seen online, that is an extremely rare effect. So like probably there's a 99% chance that you'll be totally fine using it. And from my own experience using it, I noticed it did help me lift heavier, or at least crank out a couple more reps with the same weights I was using before. So I definitely noticed a bit of a performance boost. So I would say it's probably one of the most effective supplements. I wish I could use it, but unfortunately it has that bad side effect for me. If you were in charge of the IFBB and could change one thing, what would it be? Okay, easy one. The judging system. I'd make it way more transparent. I don't know if it needs a total overhaul, but it definitely needs like a makeover, so to speak, in terms of how it's presented and how it's distributed to the fan base, right? Like we need more than one stupid number per bodybuilder to explain the results of these contests. So that's first and foremost. Tom, longtime fan of the channel, and I hope you keep up the great work. My question, do you believe bodybuilding could become a more mainstream sport than it currently stands now? And if so, what kind of things do you think need to change to bring in more fans of the sport? Yeah, it could be bigger, probably. Just better production values, I think, would help with that, would go a long way. Somehow, if they could get it on TV or onto like one of these streaming services, as opposed to like, where right now you have to search it up online, you have to really seek it out. It would be much easier if it was just on Netflix or something. I don't know how that would work or if they could ever do that, but it definitely needs more like promotion, better production values. It'll still always be a niche thing because it's such a weird concept. I mean, these physiques are so freaky nowadays. Most people, it's not appealing to the average person, but it could definitely be run better. Is the 212 division about to die? And if so, why have prominent athletes from other divisions switched to it or considering switching to it? So I think you just kind of answered your own question there. No, it's not about to die. Certainly not with all these classic physique guys switching over. If anything, that looks less promising for classic than it does for 212. But then again, I think it's mostly due to prize money, honestly. And just because the weight caps in classics are a little restrictive for some of these guys. So especially the shorter guys. So I think that's why they're making the switch. But ultimately, if, as long as the 212 prize money is greater than classic, it's never going to die. If classic, if the prize money in 212 suddenly drops to pennies and classic's making more, then yeah, it could die a slow death, but not right now the way it is. Do you think Keon Peterson, I think you mean Keon Pearson, can eventually win the Open Bodybuilding Mr. Olympia. By the way, I love your in-depth analysis. No, he definitely cannot because he's too small. He's like 5'4" or something. There's no chance, man. There's never been a Mr. Olympia that short, but he could definitely win 212, and he probably could have won Classic too if he had stayed there. But I don't see it in Open. Do you think Nick Walker can be the next big Rami? So that's an interesting one. No, I don't see it. He's already way too thick through the waist, whereas Rami, back in the day was, and even today, he has a very good X frame. Nick Walker's very blocky, and I see more like of a Dallas McCarver or like a Dave Palumbo even in him than a big Rami. So no, I don't think so. Which rookie IFBB pro from this year's Mr. Olympia lineup do you think has the most future potential in terms of their placings at top tier shows, such as Arnold Classics and future Mr. Olympias? So correct me if I'm wrong. I think there wasn't Hunter the only rookie. Like maybe in other categories there were some, but as for Open, Hunter Labrada I think stands out to me the most. I don't even know who else was a rookie up there this year. So yeah, that's my answer. What are your thoughts on weightlifting accessories, things like lifting belts, arm blasters, fat grips, squat shoes, etc.? Do you use them, or do you think they are a gimmick? Thanks and love your channel. No, some of these things are definitely not gimmicks. Like weight belts, I mean, that's just basic safety when you're doing heavy squats or deadlifts or anything like that. I think that's kind of essential. So as for some of these others, you don't mention them, but I have used lifting straps to help hang on to the weight when you're doing like heavy shrugs or something. That, again, is almost essential depending on how heavy you're going and how strong your grip is. You might actually almost need them, or else you're being restricted by your forearms failing as opposed to the back failing. As for fat grips, I just actually ordered some, and I have yet to use them, though. They just arrived, so I'm going to test them out. I've heard good things. I'm a little skeptical myself as to how effective these could possibly be, but I'm curious to try it, so maybe I'll let you know later. What do you think about the rise of Nick Strength and Power on YouTube to become the biggest bodybuilding channel? I think it's totally deserved. I think the guy's a workhorse. He's been pumping out like a video every single day, basically, for the past 3 years at least. I don't know. Like he just never stops. He's like a robot, and he's got pretty good quality content too, considering his frequency. And he's still my number one go-to news source. Like I'm not too keen on a lot of his social media stuff. I don't care about really when he gets into that or the powerlifting side of things, but for his bodybuilding coverage and updates, I think he's a pretty good like go-to source, and I can see why he's the most popular. There's really nothing about the guy that's would kind of turn people away. He's got that really good, deep, radio-friendly voice. So I think he deserves his success. He has some flaws and stuff. He's not the best at everything, but I'm not surprised in the least. Why won't you do top 10 bubble gut bananas of all time? Don't even need to answer it. It's right there. I highlighted the response. Thoughts on Marx Max Muscle? I like him, man. I think he's really good. He reminds me of a young me. Okay. He reminds me kind of how I was a couple years ago when I didn't script everything, when I was a little more unfiltered. I think he's got a great voice. Like he could be like a wrestling announcer, boxing announcer, or something like that. And he can be funny. And he, like Nick Strength and Power, he's a workhorse, man. He pumps out daily content pretty much. So yeah, I'm impressed. He's one of the channels that I'm happy that he's getting the success finally and the attention that I felt he's deserved for 2+ years now, and he's finally starting to grow. So that's great to see. With very short competitors in Open like Flex Hattie and Bonac, who all do well, do you see the 212 division coming to the end? And do you think there will come a point where Classic surpasses Men's Open as the most viewed, popular, and highest paid division? So the second question, no, it will not, because the Open class has too much history behind it, too much prestige, and it's called the Mr. Olympia. It's not called the Mr. Classic Physique. So could Classic become the second biggest? Yeah, absolutely. I think it already deserves to be that. But for whatever reason, they're just not paying out enough money for it yet, or giving it the kind of airtime that it deserves. And as for the first question, No, I don't see 212 coming to an end, not just yet. Not unless, not until Classic really surpasses it and they start getting out more money in that division, right? As long as 212's paying more, it won't die. Do you think Breon should/will move back to 212? Yeah, I do think he should. I don't know if he will, so time will tell. Should Wesley Vissers move to open? Absolutely not. No freaking way. That guy, to me, I don't care what the judges think of him. I think, to me, he's one of the most classic-looking physiques out there. So I don't get why he places so low all the time. I know it's a conditioning thing, but even so, I'd always have him probably at least a spot or two higher than he does end up landing. So I think it's a great fit for him, and I think he just needs to, I don't know, just make some minor tweaks here and there, come in better conditioned. Just little mistakes, I think, are holding him back. So I think he's got a bright future there. And his physique right now is very Arnold-esque in certain poses, and it would be stupid for him to try and bulk up and compromise more. On all the supplements out there, what do you think is necessary and what is useless BS? So 90% of it is useless BS. Even like protein powders, which are like the gold standard for like the most basic supplement you can buy, I think are mostly BS and a placebo effect. I don't think that compares to having like a good quality steak or chicken breast after a workout in terms of your, post-workout nutrition. But I would say, yeah, if I'm going to pick one or two, I would say, yeah, protein powder. Because placebo effect is a powerful thing, and it's like a nice reward, right? When you have finished a workout, it's positive reinforcement. You get like the equivalent of a milkshake, at least something to tide you over until you eat some real food. I'm not big on multivitamins. I know a lot of people love them, multivitamins and minerals. For me, I've tried like one of the best, the Animal Pack one that had like 13 pills you had to swallow, for God's sake. And the most noticeable difference that I found personally was that it turned my piss neon yellow because I was just pissing out all the excess vitamins and minerals. So it was basically you're literally pissing away your money. If you're having a good balanced diet, there's really no need for that, in my opinion. Maybe if you're doing a serious cut and you're very restricted, then I could see the value of it because you might be missing some of those essential micronutrients. Other than the protein powder, then I would say like a pre-workout or like creatine could definitely help you kind of get pumped for a workout, but you probably shouldn't rely on it all the time because, especially with pre-workouts, because of the caffeine content. But yeah, that's really about it. And then outside of bodybuilding, I do take probiotics because I find that they do help with my digestion a lot. So I would actually say that's one of the most effective supplements I've ever tried in my own experience. If you could have the body of any IFBB pro, current or past, who would it be? Okay. I know I've said before many times Sean Ray's my favorite bodybuilder, but that's mainly because as a shorter guy myself, I'm like 5'8". I can identify with him more. I always really liked his aesthetics and his posing presentation, but if I'm not being restricted, I would go with like a 93 Flex Wheeler. I think that's the best physique to ever grace the earth. Like, never mind a bodybuilding stage, but like certainly in a bodybuilding context, for me, it doesn't get any better than that.